It began as a journey of love and adventure. Tami Oldham and her fiancé, Richard, were sailing across the Pacific, chasing sunsets, laughter, and freedom aboard their dream yacht, Hazana. But in one horrifying night, paradise turned into hell. A Category 4 hurricane struck without mercy, winds screaming, waves towering like mountains. When Tami regained consciousness, the ocean was silent. The boat shattered, and Richard was gone. Alone, injured, and surrounded by endless water, she faced the impossible. 41 days of hunger, storms, and madness. She repaired her wrecked boat with trembling hands, fought off sharks, and steered toward a fading hope guided only by the stars. Every sunrise reminded her of what she lost, but every breath reminded her she was still alive. The date was September 22, 1983, a day that would change two lives forever. The Hazana, a beautiful 44-foot boat, was sailing from the blue waters of Tahiti towards the golden dreams of California. On board were two people living this dream: 23-year-old Tami and 30-year-old Richard, an experienced sailor. Their plan was simple: a 35-day journey, a memorable romantic date in the middle of the ocean, and a new life in America. They had food, water, and each other. They thought that was enough. The first week was like a journey through paradise. Their boat glided over the blue expanse of the Atlantic like butter. With the warmth of the sun during the day and a blanket of stars at night, life seemed beautiful. Richard was confident in his boat and himself, while Tami felt like her dream had come true. She wanted to capture every moment in her eyes, with the air filled with love and hope for the future. The storm and the warning. On the 10th day of their journey, a warning came. The weather department had predicted a major cyclone, but Richard, in his pride and experience, dismissed it as a minor storm. "Don't be scared, I'm here," he reassured Tami. They ignored the warning, and it proved to be their biggest mistake. On the 12th day, miles from land, the sky changed to a deep, terrifying black. A monstrous storm suddenly enveloped them. The waves rose as high as mountains, crashing down on their small boat like a toy. The Hazana was tossed about, as if the sea wanted to swallow it whole. Richard fought with all his might to control the boat, sweat on his face and a glint of fear in his eyes for the first time. Tami was terrified, clinging tightly to a spot. For hours this deadly dance continued. Richard's courage and experience saved them that day. They survived the storm, but the boat was heavily damaged. The next few days were spent in the quiet beauty of the sea, a calm before another, even bigger storm. A proposal and a tragedy. On October 12th, the 20th day of their voyage, a magical night unfolded. Surrounded by miles of blue water and a sky full of stars, there was no noise, no world, just the two of them and the ocean. Richard had arranged a beautiful candle-lit dinner on the boat's deck. In the glow of the candles, Tami's eyes sparkled. In that perfect moment, Richard knelt and proposed to Tami. A small ring held a promise of a lifetime. With tears of joy, she said yes. The moment was perfect, almost too good to be true. After dinner, Tami, tired and happy, went to sleep, believing her life was now beautiful forever. Richard continued to sail, dreaming of their future. Around 11 p.m., a powerful jolt shook the boat. Something heavy had collided with it. Richard was startled. He looked around but saw nothing. As he went to the edge of the deck, the unseen monster returned. This time the collision was more lethal. The boat shook violently and Richard lost his balance. His head struck an iron rod, and he fell unconscious into the raging sea. In an instant he disappeared from view, swallowed forever by the depths. In the cabin, Tami's head also hit a wall due to the collision, and she was knocked unconscious. She was spared from falling into the sea, but was now trapped in a floating tomb. Water was gushing into the boat through a large hole. The Hazana, once their palace of dreams, was sinking. Survival against all odds. About 15 hours later, Tami woke up to find her feet in water. The cabin was half submerged. Panicked, she ran out. The deck was flooded, and the boat was listing to one side. She called for Richard, but there was no reply, only the terrifying silence of the sea. It didn't take long for her to realize she was alone. Her love, her fiancé, was gone forever. Her heart shattered, but this wasn't the time to cry. It was a choice between life and death. Tami gathered all her courage. She quickly grabbed some dry food packets, a water bottle and a flashlight, stuffing them into a bag before jumping into the ocean from the sinking boat. After swimming for a while, she saw that the boat, instead of sinking completely, had filled with water and capsized, but was still afloat. This was a tiny glimmer of hope. She swam to the overturned hull and climbed on top. It was now her only refuge, a small spot that could be swallowed by the sea at any moment. The wind and waves carried her in an unknown direction. Just imagine that scene. A lone girl whose fiancé was taken by the sea, sitting on an overturned boat, surrounded by the silence of death. The night that followed was a night of terror. Her body trembled with fear. Every sound made her think a shark or some other monstrous creature was coming for her. She screamed, cried, and called for help, but there was no one to hear her voice. That night was probably the longest and most horrifying night of her life. A hell she could never forget. A cliff, a raft, and a miracle. With the first rays of the morning sun, a ray of hope appeared. Tami saw a distant rock, not a small one, but a large mound of rock high above the sea, so high that the waves couldn't reach it. She decided it would be safer than the overturned boat. Gathering her precious belongings, she jumped back into the icy water. Fighting the waves with her remaining strength, she somehow reached the rock. But climbing it was another challenge. It was wet and slippery. She didn't give up, and inch by inch, scraping the rock with her fingernails, she finally made it to the top. She was exhausted, but felt safe. However, this relief quickly turned to horror when she saw a sight on the edge of the cliff that made her heart sink. 2 human skeletons. The pile of bones screamed a single message: "You are not the only one trapped here, and your end will be the same." Tami felt as if she had escaped one trap only to fall into a bigger one. Her food ran out in the first 2 days, leaving her with only hunger, thirst, and despair. On the 3rd day, her throat parched. She tried to quench her thirst by licking the dew that had settled on the rock overnight, but it was futile. The nights became even more terrifying. Due to hunger and weakness, she began to hallucinate, hearing Richard and her family calling her name. On the 5th day, her body started to give up. The sun had burned her skin, and her lips were cracked and bleeding. Then another disaster struck from the sky. A fierce storm rose, and the waves threatened to swallow the rock. A giant wave almost washed her away, but she held on tightly to a crack in the rock and survived. After the storm, she collected the rainwater that had gathered in the rock's crevices into her small bottle. This water was her life for the next few days. On the 8th day, a seabird landed on the rock, and she lunged to grab it with all her strength. But it flew away, and Tami collapsed from weakness. By the 9th day, Tami's courage was completely shattered. She had given up hope of living. She kept looking at the skeletons, thinking she would become one of them in a few days. She stood at the edge of the cliff, contemplating jumping into the sea and ending her life. Perhaps death would be better than this torment. But then fate rolled the dice one more time. On the 10th day, almost unconscious from weakness, a small wooden raft floated by and hit the rock. At first she thought it was another hallucination, but when it didn't move, Tami realized it was real. This was a chance, perhaps her last. She gathered all her remaining strength and somehow climbed onto the raft. The raft began to drift toward the deep sea. She didn't know where she was going or if she had a future, but she was moving away from the skeletons on the rock. It was a journey into the unknown that might end in death, but it was a journey of hope. Her difficulties didn't lessen on the raft, they only increased. On the 13th day, a large shark circled her raft for hours, nudging it as if testing it. Her breath was held in her chest. Starving, she made a hook from the threads of her clothes and tried to catch a fish. After hours of struggle, she finally caught a small fish, which she ate raw. On the 16th day, she saw a ship in the distance. She screamed with all her might and waved her hands, but they didn't see her. The ship disappearing was like her hope disappearing. She cried uncontrollably. But slowly, she learned to live with nature. She learned to predict when the weather would turn bad, and when she might find fish. On the 21st day, a nail from the raft caused a deep wound in her leg, and it became infected. When her leg began to rot, she did something unbelievable and painful. She let small sea shrimps feed on the rotten flesh to clean the wound. The pain made her scream, but it was the only way to survive. The days passed, 28, 29, 30. Her hair began to fall out from malnutrition, and a tooth became loose. She was alone and talked to herself, treating her shadow as a friend. On the 38th day, while she was tormented by hunger, a coconut floated by. It was like nectar to her. She ate it, and a new hope rose that there might be an island nearby. The rescue. By the 40th day, her body had completely given up. She had accepted that death was certain, and mentally prepared herself for it. On the 41st day, she saw a faint shape in the distance. A fishing boat. She didn't have the strength to yell. She just raised her hand slightly, and a fisherman on the boat saw her. She was saved. When she was given fresh water for the first time, she drank it, and tears flowed from her eyes. The tears and the sweet water mingled as one. She had survived a 41-day journey through hell. Tami was alive, but the girl she had been was forever changed by the sea. This is a story of courage. This is a story of never giving up. If life knocks you down 100 times, getting up 101 times is what life is all about. If you like this story, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your one subscription gives us the courage to bring more such true stories to you. And yes, a new hype option has appeared in the comment section. So please use it to show your love and comment on how Tami's courage inspired you.